Welcome to another episode of the Consistency Corner podcast. And this is, no joke, my favorite time of year. And not because of what you think. You might be thinking it's like, oh, you love Thanksgiving, you love Christmas. Yes, those things are all fine. I love this time of year for the planning that we get to do for next year. So I want to talk today about planning your 2024 marketing strategy. And then on the next episode, we're actually going to get into the nitty-gritty about Q1 and planning your content for Q1. But I love this time of year. If you have not already planned marketing for 2024, this is the time. Like, we need to do this in December because lo and behold, you don't want to land on December 26th after Christmas and realize, like, oh my gosh, January is next week. I have not planned anything for my marketing for next year, let alone next month. And we want to make sure that we get ahead of it by being proactive. And maybe you've already done this. And if you have already done some planning, hopefully the tips that I'm going to share today and the process will give you just kind of another lens to look at your plan through and make sure that you've accounted for everything that you want to think about in your marketing strategy for next year. And the other thing that I'll share is I know sometimes business owners who are in growth mode or evolving, are maybe adding new services or new products, pivoting potentially. It feels scary to plan for the entire year because you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if some of these things that we're going to launch, if they're going to work. I don't know what the market's going to do. I don't know what my customers are going to be needing. Potentially 6 months down the road, like, you probably have a good idea of Q1, but you don't necessarily know for sure for Q2, 3, 4. But the idea of putting a penciled in plan together is that it gives you a roadmap to follow. And then throughout the year, you can decide if you want to change directions, if you want to veer off and go somewhere else, if you want to pivot again. But it helps with the decision fatigue. And so then in that moment, instead of deciding like, okay, well, what are we going to do? It's, do we want to follow this plan? Yes or no? Do we want to take any points, like parts of this plan, and move forward with them? What do we want to stop? What do we want to start? What do we want to continue with? Because you've already done that big picture visioning for the entire year. So let's get into it. Let's get into how to plan your 2024 marketing. And then next episode, like I said, we'll talk a little bit more about your Q1 content. So when it comes to planning, the very first step is to get out a big old calendar. Now, I'm obsessed with calendars. I have a giant dry erase calendar above my desk. Plus, I use Google Calendar. I have also used spreadsheets in the past, or paper calendars with sticky notes. So if you're like a visual pen and paper person, get a big old calendar. If you're a digital person, I actually really love to do this on a spreadsheet because it helps you see it all in one, or a calendar, like a digital calendar. Sometimes you have to kind of flip through. But the very first thing that we want to put on our calendar is things like launches. So if you know you are going to launch specific products or offers or services at certain times of the year, we want to put those launches on the calendar. Now, along with launches, we want to put things like holidays or trends, significant dates or times of year in your business. So like, let's say you're a business that services people in education. Then back to school obviously is a really important time for your ideal client. Or let's say you are a business that serves parents. Back to school, again, really important time to think about. So knowing those kind of tentative dates or time frames and having them on the calendar and thinking about, like, let's talk about holidays. 4th of July is a day, but knowing that in the market, people are thinking about 4th of July, depending upon where it falls. Like this year, it falls on a Thursday. Well, likely people are going to take long weekends. They're going to take off that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, thinking about just what campaigns make sense when your buyers, your ideal client, could potentially be not in purchasing mode or not in decision-making mode, and just understanding that as you map out your year and your calendar. So we've got our calendar, we've got launch dates that we've decided, tentative or not, we've got holidays and market factors, things that are happening in the world and in culture that are relevant to your ideal buyer. And then we're going to start to put together some campaigns. And when I say campaign, you might be like, Ruthie, what are you talking about? A campaign is when we're taking a specific message and we are threading it through all of the different containers where we put marketing content. And you might be like, you just said a lot of words. Please break this down for me. And I'll give you an example. I worked for a multi-million dollar brand that we actually grew over 100% in 1 year in the e-commerce division several years ago when I was in corporate marketing. And we would plan campaigns around our ideal clients' problems. So one of the problems was injury prevention. It was in the fitness industry. Injuries was like something that people would regularly deal with. And we sold products that would support injury prevention and recovery. So the idea was for X amount of time, and let's just say between 4th of July and back to school, like let's just make up a date. The campaign was going to be all around injury prevention and recovery. So all of our content in that time period, and this was content in long form content, this was website content, this was social media, this was email marketing, this was paid content, so ads, was going to be centered around this campaign and this message. And then we were able to take that campaign and use it as an anchor for what to talk about. And you might be like, okay, but why would I talk about the same thing for 3 or 4 weeks? Well, if you have children, you know that people need to hear things multiple times before they get it. And your customers are no different. And your customers are living in a very, very busy world in the point that they have content being shown to them nonstop. And so, in order for your message to cut through, it actually does have to be repetitive. And the reason that I love long form content as kind of your anchor for these campaigns is because your long form content, whether it's a blog, a podcast, or a video series, potentially, is it can be repurposed in the future and it is searchable in the future. So during the campaign, you're publishing these things, you're putting it out there, it's your constant messaging. But in the future, if somebody Googles you and needs to solve problem around XYZ, you've already got content out there. So from a search perspective, that content is going to keep working for you. Plus, in the future, next year, if the campaign was successful, you can revisit that campaign and repurpose some of that content. So your content starts to work smarter for you. So you don't have to work harder and keep creating more content. So we want to think about campaigns, and like Christmas is a campaign or the holidays are a campaign. So if you're in a business that could potentially be given as a gift for people, let's say you own a spa, your campaign in December is, well, it could be one of two things. It could be self-care, of like take care of yourself during the busy time of the holidays or treat yourself. But it could also be giving the gift of relaxation, giving the gift of, self-care and positioning your products and your services as giftable. So putting those campaigns on the calendar is going to, again, give you a framework of what content to create during those times. And you want to think about those campaigns in terms of your business goals. So what's the business goal? Is it to move a certain type of product? Is the business goal to sell and book out certain types of services or offers? Is the business goal awareness and growing your audience for a future launch? Because if you've got a launch on your calendar for something new, a new service that maybe you haven't done before, or something that serves a new ideal customer, you need to be backtracking or working backwards to build your audience prior to that launch. So your campaign might be around list building and sharing content that is like building problem awareness and some solution awareness for your ideal client. So when we get all of those things on our calendar, we've got our launch dates, we've got our key dates in the world, and we've got our campaigns penciled in, pencil, guys, not pen. Then we want to start thinking about the containers that we will use for our marketing. Now, you're like, Ruthie, what is a container? Okay, let's break it down. And we're going to break it down in terms of the marketing funnel. So when we think about marketing, whatever strategy you're using, container you're using, or piece of content you're creating, typically not one of those things can serve as a way to attract, nurture, and convert all at the same time. Often there are ways to attract and nurture or nurture and convert, but typically one piece of content is not going to do all three. It just can't. So we need to make sure that we have containers and content pieces that work on the business goal of attract, that work on the business goal of nurture, and work on the business goal of convert. And what we want to do when we're planning our funnel and we're planning how and where we will attract, nurture, and convert is we want to plan strategies that we can be consistent with. Because the thing about marketing is the compound effect is real and consistency is the secret sauce. You cannot do something one time and expect it to suddenly and magically work. It doesn't work that way. I wish it did. It's like health and fitness. I wish I could work out for 30 minutes and lose 30 pounds. It doesn't work that way. I have to work out and eat right and sleep and take my supplements and manage stress and all of those things in order to be healthy, in order to lose weight. And it's the same way with our marketing. We have to have strategies and activities in place to attract new eyes on our business and new audience. We have to have strategies and containers and content in place to nurture the relationship with our audience, and then to ask for the sale and convert and actually gain the business and make it easy for people to check out or raise their hand and say, yes, I want to work with you. And when we often try to do too many things at once because we scroll the internet or Instagram or we listen to the gurus and they're telling us 87,000 different things to try, we commit to doing too many things and then we do none of them consistently or we do none of them well. So what I want you to do is be really honest with yourself and the bandwidth of your team and determine what can we do consistently this year to attract new eyes on our business. Maybe it's paid traffic, meaning ads. Maybe it's SEO and regularly creating blog content or website content that is keyword driven with research that you're keywords that you've researched to drive organic search traffic. Maybe it's networking and being a part of a networking group where you're regularly meeting new people and being introduced to people in your ideal audience. Or maybe for you, it's trade shows and getting trade shows on your calendar, knowing that at those trade shows, you're going to meet hundreds, if not thousands, and be exposed to hundreds of thousands of new people. And I'm not saying that any of those strategies are better than the other. I mean, we could also layer in like short form video, Reels and TikToks are typically shown to new audience members. And so people discover you and find you that way. Billboards or even a storefront on a busy street could be considered an attract strategy. So there's like dozens of ways that we can get new eyes on our business. And we want to look at what we're already doing and what's working, but then layer in one, maybe two new things that we can do consistently. And I say maybe two, because a lot of times if people commit to two or more new things or things that they're already doing at a higher intensity, they can't sustain it. They can't manage that intensity consistently. And so then they never actually even give it a chance to work. So think about your top of funnel. Think about what strategies or containers you are using to attract new eyes on your business. Then we move down to the nurture piece of it. Once someone discovers your business, how are they getting to know you? How are you adding value to that relationship? How are you serving before you sell? And again, I actually think social media is an excellent tool for nurturing, because oftentimes people are going to find you on social media after they've been referred to you or they found you somewhere else, and they're going to check you out on Instagram because that's what they do. That's where they hang out. So the social media content that you have up there should be nurturing those people who are looking to get to know more about you. And then they can decide if they want to hit that follow button because they've decided that you're for them as they've moved down the funnel. They can decide if they want to check out stories or your highlights and really dig deep into your content. Or they can decide like, hey, this person's not for me. And that's okay, because not every person is for you. We're not Amazon, which, to be fair, Amazon's not for everybody. There are people who don't use Amazon. But What are the ways that you are adding value through content? Because content is a vehicle for connection, and business comes from connection and relationships. And some of our content should be put out into the world to truly just nurture those relationships, add value, share insights, give people quick wins, solve problems. And again, I want you to think about the containers and the way that you're doing this. I'm going to go back to long form content because that should be the anchor of your content strategy, but a blog, a podcast, a video series, and again, a way that you can serve people through your content that can then be repurposed into other containers such as social media or Pinterest or emails or things like that. But how are you nurturing them? And then at what consistency can you do that? For me, of the podcast, it started out as once a week. And then eventually it grew. And I said, you know what? I can commit to 2 episodes a week. And then eventually we said, we're going to take the podcast and also turn it into a blog so that it's also consumable for somebody who wants to read, or it's easier found via Google search because it's written content on my website. If you're not doing long form content right now at all, don't commit to weekly because you won't do it. You won't do it consistently. You'll maybe do it for a little while and then you'll burn out. Just like somebody who says like, I'm going to go run a marathon next week or in 3 months. And all they've ever been doing is sitting on the couch. And suddenly they think like they're going to go run 10 miles a day every day. Like you're not. You've got to work up to it. So let's commit to a consistency that we can maintain, and then we can grow from there. So if you've been doing long form content as a nurture strategy monthly, maybe now it's time to increase to twice a month. Let's just think about that. Maybe a higher intensity of something that you've already been doing and getting some traction around would get you more traction or get you there faster. So we're going to look at that nurture container and say social media, long form content, email marketing, those are really the big 3. How am I going to leverage those content containers to nurture my relationship with my audience through intentional content and commit to an intensity that we can be consistent with? How are we going to leverage social media? How are we going to leverage email marketing? How are we going to leverage long form content? And then finally, the bottom of the funnel, or the smallest piece of the pie, is convert. So thinking about what are the containers and the ways that we are going to make it so that we can ask for the sale and make it easy for people to actually say, yes, take my money. Yes, I would like to work with you. And sometimes this is content or marketing containers, but sometimes it's also thinking about your customer experience and just understanding how to make it easy for people to work with you. If it's like, call me, text me, email me, hit this button, fill out this form, and a lot of different ways, that can be helpful for some customers, but it can also create decision fatigue for some customers. So you really want to think about, particularly if you're a service provider, what's the easiest way for someone to connect with you and say that they want to work with you? Maybe it is filling out a form and then you reply via email. Maybe it is booking a call and scheduling time on the calendar with you. Maybe it is just calling and picking up the phone. Although I would argue that today people don't like to call and pick up the phone because we live in a digital world that people want to do things on their schedule and they want to send messages and texts, but that's a whole nother conversation about customer experience and customer trends. But how do you make it so that people who are thinking, I want to work with you, can actually do so? Is it easy on your website? Is it easy to find on your social media? Is it easy to find in the emails that you're sending? And speaking of email is definitely a nurture container, but it can also be a convert container. But what we don't want, to be honest, is to be Bath and Body Works, where we send 2 emails a day every day. Buy the thing, buy the thing, buy the thing. I mean, I get Bath and Body Works emails and I haven't unsubscribed because I search for them when I go in the store to look for a coupon, but I'm not opening them every single day. And so particularly if you're a service provider, we want to think about email in a way that we are emailing to add value and nurture and connect and build a relationship, and then occasionally using email to ask for the sale let people know we have availability, let them know how and when they can work with us, and get our calendars booked and our services sold through email. Same thing with social media. We can use stories to sell. You can add links in stories. And you want to make it easy for people. Your link in bio can be an easy way for people to connect with you and check out, particularly if you don't have a website that they can do that on. Using social media is a way to do that. But you just want to think about, when are you selling in the different containers? And are you balancing that with serving and nurture type content so that you are adding value in the relationship before you ask for the sale? So, as you think about 2024, I know I just walked you through a lot in terms of attract, nurture, and convert, and thinking about your containers and thinking about your strategies and your campaigns. When you start to plan your content, and this kind of goes back to your campaigns, you want to really think about your content pillars and themes. And your content pillars are like the big buckets. And there's quite honestly like 3 to 5 pillars. That's really kind of the sweet spot. If it's 2, it's probably your 2 like one note, not multidimensional enough to really build a true lasting relationship with people. And if it gets to be more than 5, like, you're going to lose people and you're kind of all over the place. Because the thing about this content and these pillars and themes is this is going to be what you are known for. So we want to say it repeatedly and regularly to build that authority and create that lasting impression. So when you think about your content pillars, 3 to 5, right? And then your content themes are like the bigger categories of information that you can share within those pillars. And even those themes could be broken down into smaller topics. And a topic for me is like I can talk about this for 5 to 10 minutes, no notes, no research. Like, that's a topic. A theme, a little bit broader, and a pillar even broader. And so thinking about those buckets and then planning out how you want to share those different buckets and different topics and pillars and themes across those different containers that you committed to at the different intensities that you have decided on for the next quarter. And then thinking about, just again, penciling in what you might want to layer on in Q2 or Q3 or Q4 in terms of additional things. And I'll give you an example. Maybe you're not using Pinterest yet and you're using other social media containers. And you're like, you know what? I have blog content. I have things on my website that I could point back to on Pinterest. I want to layer in Pinterest in Q2. Okay, that's the new thing you're going to do in Q2. Or maybe you're regularly using LinkedIn for your content. You're posting on LinkedIn 2 or 3 times a week. You're showing up there. You're adding value. You're having conversations. You've got a strategy to occasionally ask for a sale or convert there, or maybe share a free resource to grow your email list. And you're like, I want to start being more visible on another social media platform. So in Q1, I'm going to layer in Instagram. But because I don't have the bandwidth to consistently create content for both LinkedIn and Instagram, I'm going to do a 9 grid on Instagram. And that's how I'm going to show up. So you're deciding what to layer in and where versus deciding to do it all at once and layer in 5 things at once and then not actually knowing what is working. Because if we layer in a lot of new things at once, sometimes it can be, number one, you can't do it intense enough or well enough to make an impact. But number 2, you don't know where the impact is coming from because we've layered in so many new things at once. So layering in one new thing at a time. Now, our next podcast, we are going to get into the nitty gritty of content planning 1 quarter at a time. That's our strategy, but kind of penciling things in for the entire year. So stay tuned for that. And if you have specific questions about planning your marketing funnel or your marketing strategy, or you need just like another set of eyes on your business, like, this is what I live for. I literally love having these conversations with businesses and finding bespoke strategies that work for you, because that's the thing about strategy. Marketing strategies, content frameworks, all of these things, like, they're like recipes. There's not one wrong or right strategy. There's what's the right strategy for you. Like, what's your favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe? Even though there's 87,000 chocolate chip cookie recipes on Pinterest, let's find the one that works for you. The ingredients that you have in your cupboards or you can easily source, the things that you can bake, like with your eyes closed on autopilot, that your team can execute while also serving clients and growing your business in the other capacities so that marketing doesn't have to take all of your time and energy. I would love to come up with those strategies for you. So if you're interested in learning more about working together, head over to theconsistencycorner.com, find out about our services and how we can support you, and send me a DM on Instagram. Even if we just kind of do some brainstorming back and forth in the DMs, I'm happy to talk about how your company can leverage marketing differently so that it is actually sustainable enough to continue to fuel your growth. Thanks so much for being here, and I will see you on our next episode.